again. It's all cold glazing you were mine, and it made me love it and begin again. It made me love it and begin again. You made me love it and begin again.
Hello, sinners. My name is Alice Sin, and welcome to Alice's Shelf Monsters. Yeah, this is a new part of our channel in which every month we'll talk a little about a monster, like a creature. So we'll take a dive into its history, how it came to be what it is today, and some of the most famous takes of it. And we'll start with zombies. I love zombies. I just love them. I love them. I know everybody hates them. I love them. So where do zombies come from? The term comes from the hoodoo culture. And it was connected to these spellcasters that would bring people back from the dead. However, they had nothing to do with the zombies we're used to. The zombies we're used to, the ones that, eat people, they derived from the medieval culture, and they were actually called ghouls. The first time these monsters appear in the movies is in Night of the Living Dead in the 60s, and there's a whole historical context to it. But the first time they appear, they are actually called ghouls. They are not zombies. So let's talk about what was going on in America in the 60s. By the end of the decade, the anti-war movement was bigger than all of the other freedom movements. So that was a big thing going on. There were also a lot of discussions concerning the Black rights movement and concerning the civil rights movement and the rights for Black people who were enslaved for years. In that moment, we have the abandonment of the idea of integration to profit the idea of Black Power movement. So we're not trying to be one and the same. No, we have a different inheritance. We are different. So let's celebrate our differences. In that moment, we have Loving versus Virginia, which authorized the marriage between races in 1965. We also have Roe versus Wade, which gave women the right to abortion. Which, everything went down last year. So y'all know about Roe versus Wade. But the idea is that now there is a right to privacy. Also, we have Sylvia Plath, we'll be talking about her next week, The Bell Jar, in which she talks a lot about misogyny. So everything was good. We have 68 in France, which was like this very big liberal movement. And what happens when the liberals are getting power? The conservatives are like, no, we don't like that. So we get Nixon. And Nixon promises to bring law and order back. We also have Silent Spring, which is a book that talks about the poisoning of edibles. And the man hadn't yet gone to space. So there is a fear of the unknown, that maybe Mars is sending radioactivity. I swear this all has to do with zombies, because of what follows. So people are worried about this radioactivity coming from Mars and what the poisoning of edibles could do to them. So now we have this big story, Night of the Living Dead, about people coming back from the dead and eating people alive. A lot of movies that come after that explain how zombies came to be. Night of the Living Dead does not. However, only in the movie Dawn of the Dead does the term zombie get connected to the beings that eat corpses. And Dawn of the Dead is actually a take on consumerism and how the society has gone mad. And the zombies there are a metaphor to the nuclear war. We had the whole Cold War thing going on, and then the fear of a nuclear war that could kill everyone. So the zombies represent like this thing that nobody knows and that can destroy the whole world. By then, zombies did not eat brains. So when does that idea that zombies are hungry for brains come from? It comes from a comedic horror movie called Return of the Living Dead. And it also talks about its society, because what causes zombies to come to be in this movie? The army that's experimenting with people. So it's this idea that the government's poisoning the society and all of this. Remember that there was this whole anti-war movement. So it's this idea that the government's like experimenting to try to win everything and to go to nuclear wars and whatnot. And this destroys the world because they create zombies because of that. Also, we had a big movement against drugs in that period. And in Return of the Living Dead, the zombies want to eat brains to escape the pain of being dead. And this is a huge metaphor to like losing your mind because of drugs, and how it can consume your brain, so you need to eat other people's brains. In the 90s, we have a different Night of the Living Dead come up. And this time, Barbara fights back. And this is quite interesting because in the first movie, Barbara, who created the whole meme, they're coming for you, Barbara. She doesn't do anything. She just cries and cries and cries. Concerning the racist movement, we have our protagonist in Night of the Living Dead being a black guy. And spoiler alert, when the night is done and he survives, the police shoots him. No questions asked, just shot straight through the forehead. And this is a whole take on how the police deals with black people. So in Night of the Living Dead, 90s version, Barbara fights back for the first time, because in the original one, she just cries and lies and doesn't do anything. This is a change in the idea of women, because now we have the women in the 90s, the women who are fighting back. We had the suffrage movement. So now she is there to fight. And that comes after the idea of Final Girl. In the future, we'll be talking about how this Final Girl idea was created. We'll talk about serial killers in movies. But just know that for now, we had this idea being built of a Final Girl. And we all know who a Final Girl is, right? We all have that horror film that we love that has a Final Girl. It's a thing. And zombies became a huge thing in video games. We have Resident Evil, 1996. And this is really interesting because in Resident Evil, the zombies are created because of a virus. And what had just happened? The HIV crisis. When we talk about vampires, we'll see how the HIV influenced that. But this idea that a virus can create a person that's living dead, think about it. Think about HIV in the gay communities in the 80s. They were living dead beings. They were gonna die, but yet they were living. So this idea of a virus creates zombies most likely derived from the idea of HIV. And Resident Evil revolutionized survival gaming. Finally, last piece of information, 28 days later was the first time we had fast zombies. Now we have zombies any way you like them. And since this is a literary channel, I want to leave here a book recommendation for a novel that I love, written by Madeline Hooks, whom I'm a big fan of. And it's called Alison Hewitt is Stranded. Oh, so good. So this is a bit of the history of zombies. Let me know if you liked it in the comments below. And next month we'll be talking about vampires, and there's a lot to be said, including lesbianism. So remember, life is a sin.